We need to get to this. Russian President Vladimir Putin did not like what happened in the House and Senate late yesterday. Both the houses overwhelmingly passing new sanctions on Russia and giving Congress, this is a side part of it, the powers to block President Trump from making any move to ease those sanctions against Moscow. Putin retaliating today by demanding that the U.S. cut its diplomatic staff in Russia and says that Russia will seize 2 of the U.S.'s diplomatic properties. But none of that matters because the legislation has officially been delivered to the White House door and is now waiting for the president to sign it. But will he? One person who helped convince Congress that these sanctions are absolutely necessary is this man, Bill Browder, Hermitage Capital founder and friend of Russian lawyer Sergei Magnitsky, who was murdered in jail after uncovering a huge fraud scheme within the Russian government. Browder testified on Capitol Hill yesterday in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Listen.
Vladimir Putin, I believe, to be the richest man in the world. I believe he's worth $200 billion. That money is held all over the world in banks in America and all over. The purpose of Putin's regime has been to commit terrible crimes in order to get that money, and he doesn't want to lose that money by having it frozen. So he personally is at risk of the Magnitsky Act.
Bill Browder joins us live now. He's the author of Red Notice, and thank you again for joining us. The timing is very interesting. Here, Putin has said, you know, I'm kicking you out, I'm kicking your diplomats out. We've done the same thing in the past, but now that this sanction legislation is on the president's desk waiting for the signature, do you believe President Trump will sign it?
Well, it's hard to say what President Trump is going to do, but I have had conversations. I was in Washington yesterday meeting with a number of senators and members of the House of Representatives, and this piece of legislation, it passed 98-2 in the Senate, and there were only 3 people who voted against it in the House of Representatives. I mean, in a fractious Washington, that's about as much of a, it's unbelievable. And so if he doesn't sign it, it will be his, or I should say, either if he vetoes it or if he just leaves it, it will become law. And so I can't imagine from a political standpoint that he would want to have egg on his face on this thing. And so I think he'll sign it. I just don't see how he has any other choice.
Well, his new communications director, the aforementioned Anthony Scaramucci, had said he may sign it, he may not sign it because, quote, he doesn't think it's strong enough and he may have something a bit stronger. You know, President Trump has been habitually disinclined to say anything bad about Vladimir Putin or the Russians. This, as congressmen from both sides of the aisle and senators are saying, absolutely, this guy's a killer. It's awful, and he messed with our election here. What do you think when you hear something like that?
Well, when I hear that he's a killer, I agree with it. And
no, when you hear that
Scaramucci's
is saying he may or may not because the president might not think it's tough enough.
Well, it just sounds a bit disingenuous. You know, he's been 1 week on the job. He probably doesn't even know exactly where the president is on this particular piece of legislation. But it would be really a sort of total political mistake not to sign this piece of legislation. And my prediction is that he'll sign it because it just doesn't make any sense otherwise.
I need to bring up Paul Manafort only because it appears that if there are any connections, even gossamer threads, a lot of them go toward President Trump's former campaign head. So the big question is, from somebody like you, with all the reported issues that Manafort has when it comes to the Russians, what are the chances of a case being made that is strong enough that Manafort flips, and Ed's still sitting here, so I'll get his opinion on this, that Manafort flips and in essence escalates this drama about Russian collusion?
Well, you know, it's really not for me to say how this thing is going to play itself out. We have Mueller, who's one of the top law enforcement officials in the country, with a team of 200 FBI agents looking at this whole thing. You know, the truth will come out one way or the other. Either the president will be fully exonerated, or lots of skeletons will come out of the closet. I just do not. It would be crazy for me to predict how Paul Manafort or anyone else is going to fare in this whole thing.
Ed's still sitting here because he was waiting for the commercial break to leave. We've got 20 seconds. Do you think Manafort is pushed so hard by the feds that he flips?
I've known Paul for 40 years. Paul's not going to flip. Paul.
Then is he going to prison? Is he off the hook?
I don't know what they're going to charge. You know, obviously, anything that Paul's been involved in is going to be totally exposed, and my sense is that we'll have to wait and see.
Bill Browder, thank you so much for joining us, and Ed Rollins,
Thank you.
once again.